one of the things that happened with me is with my parents. My parents were, reported to me much later on, or when I was a little older, that when I was in my cot, they observed what we now know to be a tall grey alien standing over my cot, looking down at me as a baby. Okay. And they observed, what they described as balls of light floating and moving around my cot and going through the walls, of the bedroom where I was.
Welcome back to the I Jupiter podcast. I'm your host, Tom Franklin. And today we have on Michael Kameron. I was told to reach out to Michael Kameron by Daniel Bechman of Chariots of Fire podcast in Germany. And I was also told by my wonderful friend Pamela that I should reach out. And I finally did it, and I have him on the show. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's got it's going to be hopefully one of many podcasts with this gentleman. I'm just coming off probably some remnants of a different variation of something that I shall not mention on YouTube because, they might tag or flag or whatever they want to do and suppress information like always, but I probably had that because I lost my taste for a day. So if you keep finding yourself coming back to the I Jupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel, leave a little thumbs up, leave a comment. Anyway, any little thing that you can do to help me out, doesn't cost you anything, goes a long way for me. You can also find me on Rumble. You can also find me on Spotify. You can become a member and get extra content early, or you can also go over to Printify and get yourself a nice T-shirt. Maybe one with some mushrooms on it, or maybe one with an alien on it, or there's some bugs, some hats. There's all kind of little things over there. All that stuff gets reverted back into the podcast so I can make it the best possible product that I can, and make sure that the people who come on get their stories out and it sounds and looks the best of the ability that I can do. So, with all that out of the way, let's welcome a very warm welcome to the I Jupiter podcast, Mr. Michael Kameron.
Hello, Tom. Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. It's a real honor to be here with you and speaking with you. Yeah, I'm from the United Kingdom. I'm from London, the East End of London, and I'm a new author of the book HIGH STRANGENESS, a lifetime of alien and paranormal encounters, published by Flying Disc Press, from the veteran of ufology, Philip Mantle. He's my publisher. So yeah, the book that I wrote, it's actually a memoir about my experiences growing up actually, I grew up in a schoolhouse in London, and the book focuses primarily on the house, my childhood home, and the surrounding areas. So the schoolhouse was actually inside the school grounds, and it's from the house itself and the grounds where a lot of the experiences I had took place. But it took, I was brought up in a strict Roman Irish Catholic family. And so, I will talk about some of the experiences I had from the book. So I grew up in a haunted house. It had poltergeist activity in it.
Oh, so, okay. We have that in common.
But you often find this, don't you, with a lot of, experiences like this. There's always seems to be poltergeist activity involved, especially around the children. But you know what happened with me is I was born premature. I was born, you know, too early. Um, but when from what I understand, I was in hospital a long time. But when I come back to the house, what would be, you know, my childhood home for you know, many years until I was, you know, a teenager. That is, um, there was no problems until that time I returned to the house. So there was this activity then began a little while after I returned to the house. I
Wow.
mean, one of the things that happened with me is with my parents. My parents were, you know, reported to me much later on when I was a little older, you know, that when I was in my cot, they observed what we now know to be a tall grey alien standing over my cot, looking down at me as a baby. Um,
Okay.
and and they observed, you know, what they described as balls of light floating and moving around my cot and going through the walls, you know,
When,
of the bedroom where I was.
and when did they around your cot? Do you mean your bed or your crib?
The crib, sorry, yeah,
Oh, okay.
crib,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
So it's
Yeah,
just a different play on words, isn't it? Yeah,
yes. No, there's a lot of things like that. Pram is
yeah,
also,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, a
It's a
baby
crib,
stroller.
yeah,
A stroller is a pram. So
yeah,
there's things I'm still
yeah, yeah. It's
um,
just a play on words. It's the same thing, isn't it? Just different words.
yeah, it's just, it's a bit of culture, it's a bit of time and space and distance. But yeah,
I
it
think
happens. Question off the bat, like, so your parents told you this when you came from the hospital after being premature, that they told you shortly thereafter that things started happening?
when I was a lot older, you know, when I was, you know, a lot older to, you know, talk about those type of things. I mean, my parents were very secretive, you know, about things,
Okay.
but you know, but I think it's because of the, you know, they both were, you know, my dad was in the Royal Air Force.
Okay.
You know, he's a flight engineer on the aircraft, and my mum, she built Lancaster bombers. You know, she was in the munitions factories building bombs and stuff like this.
No
Um,
kidding.
no, yeah, she built you know, the big the airplanes. You know, she was in building and, you know, making stuff for World War II. But because she was smart, she actually was promoted to the offices where the men were. I mean, that's not a big deal now, but during the
But
war,
back then, yes.
it was a big deal. Yeah, she had a very high IQ, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so so they took her off of the, you know, the floor where you know, where the other women were making the bombs and the bullets for the
I don't
Lancaster bombers.
I don't yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna jump the shark with this question, but if I am, just correct me. I just find it mildly odd because this is the second time that I've heard this, that these type of things happen to
Mm,
children whose parents were in the military, and both of your
sure.
parents either were in or had something to do with the military. Air Force. Air Force. It's
Well,
very interesting. I don't
yeah.
know if I'm jumping the shark with that.
No. But I mean, my uncles as well. On my uncle on my mum's side, you know, he's believed. You know, I don't know the full details. My older brother, who's a lot older than me, he's like 20 years older than me. You know, but he's he was telling me, you know, that my uncle on my mum's side, her younger brother, you know, he served in the SAS because he was in
Wow.
during World War II. He was in Africa, and most of the time, those in Africa were the special forces.
Hmm.
Um,
SAS is
but
nothing to mess with. The SAS is
and
kind of like Delta Force or like
sure,
what's that would be the equivalent of like Navy SEAL kind of.
Navy SEALs,
It's
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, my other uncles, they were in the Navy, you know, or in merchant Navy in the Navy, you know, so that they're all involved during the war, you know, in something or other. Um, And like you said, Tom, you know, there's often when we have people involved in this type of phenomena, there is always some sort of military link involved in some way or another, or living next to or close to a military base.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know,
that was the Greenwich Forest. That was also a big thing in England. Wasn't it England? Grindlesham? Grindlesham?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was another big thing that was on the air base. It always seems to be a thing that's tied into it. I remember there was this woman that well, when I was in the other podcast, her name was Ginger, and she was having a lot of like, visitations and abductions and things. Bright lights would mess with her, and her father was also part of the like White Sands or something out there in like Texas or something. So she was it just popped in my head because we kind of like fourth wall broken down. You and I have spoken twice now. Well, this will be the third occasion, and it's just that has yet to come up because we kind of how I do the show a little bit. I kind of like want to have my reaction and ask questions on the spot, but that's just an interesting link already.
Yeah, it is a big link, I think, in many of the stories and experiences of people, especially in the US and in the UK and other places around the world, that there is always these, these links, and they're the same links with people that don't even know each other. So, it is an important factor, I think, to look upon at anything like this.
And they seen these grays. They told you later in life that when you were younger, they seen them over top of your baby crib looking at you.
Yeah, well, they described what it was, but obviously back then they didn't know what it was. This was a time when it wasn't sort of mainstream, any of this. And we remember we didn't have the internet back then.
Right, the vocabulary wasn't there to be had yet. So when they described it to you, you went, "Oh, gray, got you." Wow, dude.
And so there's, and even with my experiences, it's like there was nothing in my life at that time that would influence anything that I'd seen. Because if anything, when I wasn't, when I wasn't at school, I was at the church, and and if anything, it'd be Jesus or something I would be seeing, something religious. It wasn't. It was like, when I get more into that, I mean, that's a fair point as well, because my life with growing up in a strict Irish family, but also a community. I mean, my dad was friends with most of the Roman Catholic priests, and also the nuns. We had a presbytery where the priests live, and a convent 2 doors away where the nuns were. My dad was unusual because he was just to look at, he was an ordinary guy in an ordinary job as a schoolkeeper, but he had many interesting friends, high-ranking police officers, all Freemasons, military people. So when I was growing up as a child in this house, the adults that were surrounding me at the time, they were either high-ranking, like cardinals from the Vatican. They were high-ranking police officers who were Freemasons, and a lot of military people my dad knew. My dad was 16 when I was 15 years old. I was just coming into my 16th birthday. But at his funeral at the church, I whispered to my mum and said, "Mum, who are all these people?" So the whole church was literally so packed out, and you had galleries that had never been filled. And these galleries were all full up, on top of it.
The top row,
So this church, it was never full up. This church was packed out, even outside. The police were outside because there were so many people outside. The police were outside to keep. It was on a busy road, so they had to control the traffic. There was also 6 priests taking his funeral.
There was a lot of foreshadowing going on here, Michael. I love what this is very interesting.
So there were six priests taking his funeral. I mean, that's unheard of. There were 6 of them. And I whispered to my mum, I said, "Mum, who are all these people here, And she said she didn't know who they were. There's lots of different faces that she'd never seen before, And I remember though, outside the church, there was loads of Freemasons because they had all their, all their garb on, their dress that they wear, the aprons and so forth. And they were outside,
They came to the funeral with that on?
Yes, outside.
Wow. That's I don't know if that's usual at all. I don't think I've ever heard that.
I don't know, but I remember obviously when they were, bringing the coffin out, and either side of where we were walking, behind the coffin, they were on either side of us. So, and I do remember making at the time, I wasn't sort of like you know, into that part of it at the time. You know, it's just I was having experiences, but I was thinking, you know, a lot of the time other people were having the same things as me, you know, but you know, I thought it was a lot of it was just, yeah, as a child, I just thought it was happening to everyone. But you know, so it's just one of those things. I didn't really give it much thought as a child.
Because I
happening,
Michael,
really.
I did U.S. military funeral detail for 3 months when I was in the military. That's the white gloves, green uniform, folding the flag, 21 gun salute. And I got to tell you, I had never seen any of that, not once.
Really, that's like, yeah, that's very like disciplined as well, isn't it? What you did, got to get it right, haven't you?
You have to do it right. There's no other choice. You have to make sure that the flag is perfectly folded, that you can't see any red or white other than the white of the stars. And if you like, was a time where we fired and one guy got his gloves stuck in the charging handle.
Oh, wow!
Where you pull it, can I get up? And he got it stuck, and he couldn't fire the other 2 rounds because his finger. But you have to keep doing the motions. And then when he got it down, he got it back down to, you know, present arms or wherever it was exactly, and then he was able to kind of pull it out. It was wild. When you have to be, it was very cold. I was wearing like long johns. Long johns are kind of like
thermals.
Yeah, thermals. Thank you. Underneath my army greens because it was so cold out there, and most of the guys were so large by the time they were deceased. That there was one time in particular that we put the coffin up on the thing that lowers it down into the ground, and put it up there. The guys, the handle that he was holding, it came off in his hand as he sat it down. Yeah, that's how heavy it was, and then he just kind of like put it in his pocket. It's just like a lot of things.
You're a cool dude, eh, Tom, to do that. You know, it's you know, it's very disciplined, and you know, like you said, it is quite a big worry, though, isn't it? You get it right.
You just do the best you can and try to honor those people the best they can. And then when my day comes, I'm going to have the same thing for me because honestly, it's free. I don't have to pay for it. I can just give it to my girlfriend, my ex-wife, whoever. You know, there's a paper form called the DD-214, and you just take that to the closest military base. They take care of everything else, and yeah. So I just hope they do the same for me as I did for them.
They should take care of you.
Well, cross your fingers. Hopefully, they'll finally contact me. I'm trying to get some disability because I've been dealing with some stuff for a long, long time. Ever since I was in the Kosovo War. And it just hasn't happened yet. But I keep my fingers crossed and just keep doing what I can do. Yeah,
they need to get their finger out and do it, Tom.
Yeah, I can't force the hand. It's just one of those things.
I know. Bless you, though, eh, for that.
Well, thanks. I'm not trying to brush aside your kind remarks, but at the same time, it's always very uncomfortable.
I know. So anyway, I mean, I grew up in this house, and so when I went back in and this happened, what happened was they were starting to have cold spots in areas of the house, you know, especially in the corners of rooms and in the doors. There was these really, really strong cold spots that was not previously there, you know. And then there was times when there was objects moving around in the house and they were reappearing in different places.
Okay.
And my mum, you know, these are the things, the experiences that, and also the experiences of my family that experienced this. So my mum, when she was in the house alone, often upstairs, you know, she would have a feeling that somebody was standing behind her and the hairs, you know, on the neck would stand up, but she would also hear disembodied voices calling her name, you know, when there was no one there, you know, and she felt, you know, like when you feel someone behind you. So she often felt that and goes, you know, moving around. And I remember she said there were several times when she was upstairs alone, there was no one else in the house, and they were calling her name like really loud. She could hear it, and literally when it's right next to you. And she used to run down the stairs, you know, because she was frightened. Another time, my brother, Francis, my eldest brother, you know, when he was younger, we had in one of the bedrooms where he was in bed. There was a huge, you know, a really heavy oak wardrobe that was full up. It was
Okay.
really heavy to lift, and this was pushed over on top of him. And so
Oh,
it landed
whoa.
on top of him, but luckily he wasn't hurt. He was just shocked, you know. And Kevin, my other second eldest brother, he was coming up the stairs one day, and something rushed past him and pushed into him and knocked him down the stairs.
Oh my.
So he went down and he banged his head
And
on the
this
wall.
is a schoolhouse. What does that
Yes.
mean, a schoolhouse?
You know, it's inside the grounds of a school. So it's a house where the schoolkeeper who looks after the grounds lives. You know, sometimes you live
Oh.
outside, but this was inside the grounds.
Oh,
It
your
built
father was
inside.
taking care of, when he retired, he was taking care of the school grounds.
No, that was his job. He was a schoolkeeper. So because of his engineering background, and obviously, you know, he had he used to look after the school.
Okay.
Inside it,
Okay.
you know. So yeah, I mean, he wasn't only that; he was a football coach there as well. So he trained many generations of kids in soccer.
Yeah.
So,
Football. Yeah.
so he was,
Yeah.
I was
We'll
going to
get
say, yeah, coach, yeah.
there.
So again, different words, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So, so he did this, you know. He done lots of charity, you know, work there. He was also, you know, at one time he was a union leader, you know, fighting for the rights of people in low-paid jobs and also people that didn't have houses. He was one of the first people in the area to bring in housing for low-paid workers. So, you know,
Okay.
a lot of people didn't like that because he was a union leader, and he was obviously, you know, he was well equipped with his personality to get things done, and he did.
Okay.
So he helped a lot of people as well.
That's fantastic.
And so yeah, so you know, we had all these things going on. And another time is when my dad used to go up to bed at night, you know, used to be the last one up, used to turn all the lights out. And when he got into bed, for quite a long while, there was this banging started to occur where, you know, in the house where I grew up, the walls there, you know, they were solid, you know. So if you were to bang them with your hand, it would just create the sound of a thud, you know, like just
Yes. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's
So
massive, like a block.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And then, but in the nighttime, there was this banging sound, and it was coming from downstairs as you go down the stairs on the wall on the side. But when it was being banged, it sounded like it was like a stereo surround effect, you know, like it was echoing throughout the
Okay.
house, like bang, like that, you know, and
That's
it was going,
crazy.
yeah. And so my dad used to get up, you know, and listen, and you know, and as I explain in my book, you know, it's like you know, like when you hear something like that, obviously, you know, it is like weird. It's like that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
But obviously his left brain's kicking in, and he's trying to reason it through his left brain, thinking it's maybe someone's there, a burglar or something, someone's broken in. Whereas your right brain's actually saying, actually, no, it's not that. Obviously, listen, you know, this is not
Right.
rational, is it? You know, but you
Right.
do. People often do, don't they?
They have
That
a
part of the left brain. That's
cognitive
right.
dissonance. Yes.
Yeah. It's like your brain is fine with itself. So the logic and the reasoning is, and the analytical side of your brain is thinking, you know, that's actually, there is something logical about that. When in actual fact, your brain is saying, well, you know, listen, it's not, is it? You know, but so he used to go down and think that there was somebody there, and he used to search the rooms, and obviously there was no one there. So he used to go back upstairs and get back into bed, and then it would start again. And it was like this banging, and it went on for ages. And so at one time, I remember he shouted down the stairs and said, you know, with you know, he just swore and said something, and then he went down, and it stopped again. And then, you know, it took a long while before my parents actually then went to see the priest and asked the priest to come in to bless the house. And when he come in, he blessed the house. He went from room to room, and it stopped like that. But you know,
Wow.
when I was researching my book, an interesting fact come up that on the grounds itself of the blueprint of the house where the house was, underneath it It was actually a Roman burial ground for lepers, and they were buried underneath that house.
Oh, oh, lepers. Trying to
You
think
know,
how that would.
so where I
Okay.
grew up, okay, I grew up, if you were, like, as I explained, I lived close to the city of London, but if you went the other way, further up the road, I was literally just about 20 minutes away from the Tower of London, where the crown jewels are kept. So, you know, for the king now, or it was the queen when I was growing up.
Right,
But,
right.
but in that area where I grew up, was like lots of Roman burials and Roman, you know, artifacts and everything like this. You know, so in the grounds of where the school was built, it was actually built on Roman ground, and it was also the site of during World War II. That the area where I grew up was actually the site of the Blitz, you know, where the Germans bombed
Yeah.
London
Blitz,
really badly.
Blitzkrieg.
So in
With the
the
with the
exactly,
buzz bombs, the
that's right,
the
the V1 and
V1s.
2, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and but in the area literally where that school was built, that was one of the areas where it was most bombed the most. So there was lots of casualties and, you know, people there. So it's got history, and also again in the area, in the hospital where I was born, and in that area, it was actually the backdrop of where you had the infamous Jack the Ripper strike.
Whitechapel.
Yeah. So I was
Also,
born in that. I was born in that area.
okay. You're like born like central London.
It was in the east end of London, in Stepney, but this is like where Whitechapel is, and, you know, Aldgate East. But in this area, it's like got a rich paranormal, you know, experiences that happen there.
That's fascinating.
I mean, when I said to you that my dad was a caretaker, like a schoolkeeper. This was the new school. He actually worked in the old school, and in the old school, there's a bridge opposite this. And under that bridge is actually one of the places where Jack the Ripper struck one of his victims.
Whoa.
And I remember as a child, when I used to go, you know, when they closed this school down, then it moved to this new school where I was as a child. But when I was a child, they made it into a community hall, you know, for the local people, where people could go. I remember when I used to walk past it, I never knew nothing about the history then, but when I used to walk past it, I used to get chills and I used to run past because I was frightened. But when I was researching my book, it was actually in that spot where I discovered that was Jack the Ripper, actually, last victims.
Where he unlived one of his victims.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yes. Isn't that strange too? Like, children seem to have that a little bit more than us as adults. Like, I remember that too. There's been times I'll walk past a certain person's house, you just feel something, you feel it.
That's
and
right.
Just like,
Yeah.
I gotta go. Yeah, so interesting.
I mean,
you are setting up a very interesting story of what's happening to you, where you were born, and where everything is situated. This is interesting.
I mean, in the book, obviously, I'm touching on just little things here, you know.
Of course.
Because, but the thing is, I mean, there is a whole twist with this book. In later things that I will discuss, you know, maybe another time. But
yes.
There's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of empty spaces in the book where, you know, with question marks. But now I have more of those answers.
Oh, so there's going to be a sequel. Is there going to be a sequel?
There will be a second book. I'm writing a second book. The second book is based around primarily some of the alien abductions, but it's also based around primarily the military side of you know, black ops, classified, unclassified projects.
So this has been a thing with you your whole life. How old are you now, Michael?
56.
Wow, you look, dude, I wouldn't have guessed 56. Good looking man. Good looking man. So this has been.
It's the soap I use.
It's the soap and it's the water of England.
Yeah. So from birth, basically.
Was there yes? Was there a point at which things got to where this is an introduction. We're going to go into the details in later episodes. Sure. Like, you know, you've been so gracious to actually extend to me that idea.
Sure.
So when was this, like, too much, like where everything got too much and you realized I have to start either seeking help, looking into this? Did substance abuse come in? Was there things that started happening around you where you had to like step forward, or has it been like a gradual thing?
I started to look into it more, I guess, when I was about 17. I've self-harmed. I actually was near death, literally, because of a lot of the things that were happening to me. I didn't understand it at the time. I didn't have anyone around me I could speak to. We didn't have social media. So it was quite isolating for me to
Wow.
go through this stuff. Again with the Catholic families, I couldn't speak to them. As one of the experiences I will tell you about in a bit with my doctor. What happened with that didn't go down well. But it was, I mean, I didn't at that age. It was much later on when I moved area, because one of the things that I didn't realize is that this phenomenon moved with me. And so wherever I went, it come with me, so it didn't matter where I was, so I've had a lot of things. It continues to this day, obviously, but it's more for me military based now.
So it continues to happen to you. Okay.
Yeah. It's like, and as like I told you, I have complex PTSD, but when I do podcasts, I explain to people the PTSD for me is when it goes back to my childhood, when I was a child. So it plays out as an adult now.
Does it help? Does it help to speak with like people like myself about these situations?
Sure, yeah.
I'm sure it's cathartic, right? I'm sure it's cathartic somehow.
It is. I mean, it helped a lot me writing the book. That got a lot.
I'd imagine.
It was difficult for me to write the book because it's personal experiences, and because a lot of the things that happened to me weren't actually nice, But so when I was writing it, it's like you're reliving those traumas again. So I mean, I get panic attacks, and again, I can't sleep without the light on.
Right, so like sweaty hands and the dry mouth and the heart palpitations. Oh yeah, I've been through.
I have a lot.
I've been through them. I've been through those big time.
I have a lot of nightmares, but there's a lot of things that are coming up through the trauma which I've had, which I've now discovered through other memories and through other people's help, looking into military medical records and so forth.
So where were we?
Okay, so when some of the experiences I had as well was with my brother Sean. I mean, Sean's 2 years older than me. But one of the experiences I had here is like, I remember one time being upstairs in my bedroom, and I could hear my mum coming up the stairs, and I was actually speaking with two of my friends in the bedroom. And then I heard my mum come up, and I knew she was listening because the floorboards were creaking when her feet moved from one side to the other,
Oh, was she shifting her weight? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I knew. So anyway, the door opened, and I turned my head away from my two friends. And then my mum said to me, "Who are you speaking to?" And I said, "My two friends." And then I turned back to my two friends, and they wasn't there no more.
And these are friends that she actually knew existed?
No.
Like real friend. Okay.
So anyway, so I turned my head, away. I looked for them, and they wasn't there. So there was like windows there, and the windows were closed. I was thinking again, as a child, where did they go? I was just speaking to them. And I think my mum heard me speaking to these before, this is the reason why she come up. She could hear me speaking to somebody. And it was actually a man and a woman. They wasn't children. So, I say that they're invisible friends. So, they were actually adults. And then, so she come over to me, because she seemed, I was a little bit, concerned where they'd gone. And she knelt down beside me and just said, I'm sure that they'll come back, to reassure me.
She's a sweetheart. Oh wow, that is a sweetheart.
So she didn't,
wow.
laugh or say, it's just your imagination. She didn't say that. So anyway, she went off back downstairs and left me to it. But on another time, again, I was downstairs and I was playing with my cars. I let toy cars, matchbook box toy cars.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You
I had
remember them?
those. Yeah, dude, of course.
And I was playing with them, and my mum was in the kitchen preparing some lunch. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling in my head to almost like a command to go upstairs and wait for somebody to arrive. And, I just ignored it at first. And then I had again this feeling, this overwhelming feeling, I've got to leave that room and go upstairs. So I remember putting my toy cars down on the carpet. My mum didn't notice me leaving. And I went up the stairs and I went into my parents' bedroom. And then when I was in there, I remember, I had again a feeling that I'm not allowed to leave. I must wait for this person to arrive. And no sooner did I have that feeling than one of my friends was in front of me. And when we look now back into classical UFO or ufology, it was actually a Nordic type being, what we describe as the Nordics. These were tall blondes, the blue eyes, eye cheekbones, and their clothes were blue, well fit into their bodies. And obviously, these adults were taller than any of the other adults around me, and they didn't look nothing like any of the adults that I knew, and he actually come to me and he come in front of me and he sort of looked down into my eyes, so he bent down into my eyes, he was looking into my eyes, he was smiling.
Where did they come from?
You
said you were in the... They just appeared.
Okay. Yes, appeared. Yeah. And there was this one, normally there was 2 males and a female, but on this particular experience, it was just one. And I felt he was the one in charge, And so he came and he sort of leaned down into me quite close to my face. And as I describe in my book, I entered into an altered state of consciousness. So the room around me suddenly disappeared and it felt like I was in a cocoon with him. It's just me and him, and the room didn't exist no more. And it felt like I was giving him information. But as I write in the book, it didn't feel it was me. It felt like it was an aspect of me giving him information. And, much later on, from what I know now, it was actually an alter that I have. So, I have DID, dissociative identity disorder. And so I have alters.
Okay, you mean alternate personalities?
Yeah, the personality, yeah. But that goes into another series because it goes into other things, how I got them.
Okay. Oh, wow. So there's a lot of... you're basically setting up the tree with the roots and all the branches that we're going to be heading towards. It's more of
it goes into fascinating subjects and obviously, unusual subjects.
Yes.
But,
yes, it's kind of like you were saying, you want to do more of an introduction.
Yeah, the book is more that, yeah.
Okay, so you have a lot of work ahead of you.
Yeah, there's a lot of information.
Okay.
Right. So it was an aspect that I describe in the book as an aspect. In my second book, I will talk about the alters and what they are, their different roles and what they do, and you have a system where they all live inside of you. So, people often think you have one consciousness. You don't. You can have 100 consciousnesses inside of you. And interestingly enough, each one of them has a different EEG than what I have. So like a brain scan.
Brainwave.
Brainwaves.
Like a different wave.
Each one's different.
Wow.
So
this has been measured.
Yeah, it's measured by by experts. For people that have alters.
Oh my God, that's so okay. I didn't know that.
And also the eyes can change color when they take the body. So this is something I'll talk about. And
Is that like a
your biology can,
shapeshifter? Like a
yeah,
shapeshifter thing?
yeah, your biology can change. You know, you can change, yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
you can have human and animal alters as well. Yeah, lots of different things. So
Okay.
it's quite fascinating. I mean, you know, I will write a lot more about that. I talk a lot more about that now when I do podcasts, because I think there's a reason for that. It's not a natural. It's not just there. It's been created. So, but so anyway, with this
It's just not a lot.
Nordic type individual, you know, I felt he was taking information from me. I was giving him information. You know, now I know what that information is. You know, I won't say it here, but I know what it is now.
Okay.
And how I was able to do that. So he then, when I come out of this state, this cocoon altered state, he was gone. And I felt like at the time, I was really afraid. I was actually, my heart was pumping. I felt really afraid, and I just didn't know what, like when you sleepwalking and someone wakes you up. It felt like that, and it felt like something had happened to me, and I didn't know what it was. And this, this person who I considered a friend, who was a Nordic, type ET, he wasn't there no more, and so I just turned around and flew down the stairs, running down the stairs, almost tripping over myself. And I run to my mum, and she was saying to me, what happened? And I explained to her what had happened, and again, she didn't, funny enough, didn't dismiss it. She
Wow.
was quite reassuring with me, and just
That's
said, go
that's
back.
interesting. Is that going to have a connection later on in our discussions as well? That your mother has had these kind of encounters, maybe?
There's a twist with my parents as well
Oh,
that you'll find interesting.
okay.
I think you might know where that's going, but
I don't, but
no,
nonetheless, I'm kind
no.
of picking up some of the crumb trails on certain things, and other things you say them to me, and
So yeah,
they're not registering whatsoever.
so yeah, so there's an interesting thing with my mum and dad as well in the book,
Okay.
Which will probably have to change around in my second book. But and so anyway, I went to her, and she was reassuring to me. She didn't dismiss it. A lot of people that I've spoken to on podcasts, they often say that to me. Don't you find it funny? Your parents never dismissed it. It was like, did they know? Did they know something? And so anyway, but she was quite reassuring. I went back and I was playing with my toys, and I just forgot all about it. But that's again, I did see these particular individuals quite a lot in my childhood. But when they vanished from my life, this is when it got more sinister, because then was the time I started to have abductions by the classical grey beings, the greys, what we can now know to be the greys. And so when they went, and a friend of mine as well, who's an alien abductee, she was saying to me that she had these particular beings come to her, but she believes they're child groomers, grooming children for the abductions by the greys to make it more friendly until you start to have the more sinister encounters with the greys to set you
Okay.
up in some ways.
Okay. So
I mean, this was
45,
her.
or
Yeah.
there's another
So,
edit at 45.
so yeah.
Don't, please don't worry about it. This is my job. This is my job. I enjoy my job. I will go through and edit out that specific words. It's all right, man. Don't worry about it. I promise. I don't want you holding your tongue, because then there's going to be certain things that you automatically know to hold your tongue on, and there's going to be things that you don't know. But I don't want you to have that cloud over your head thinking that I'm upset about it. I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
I
you.
don't. This is my job. This is what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
And so another experience that I had was with Sean, my brother. So we were out on the just in front of what would be like the next to the kitchen of the schoolhouse, and it was in the summertime. The school was closed. It was summer holidays, a break, 6 weeks normally. And the school clingers normally come in and they cling in the school, when it's empty. My dad's there because he's in charge of them. But me and Sean at the time, we were on the grass, which was just adjacent to the kitchen of the schoolhouse, and we were playing soccer. We were playing football, soccer. We're kicking it around, passing it around. When Sean said to me, why don't we go and have a walk around the school grounds because there's no one here. And this was on a busy working day. So outside of the school grounds itself, there was busy warehouses. There was like, there was people going to work, dustmen, binmen, or garbage men. I'm not sure what you say in the US.
Trashmen, garbage men.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they were, so it was a busy day, a working day, really, working week. And so me and Sean, we decided to, go and over to where the gymnasium was, or the hall,
Mhm.
we were outside and we were walking this, and there was like two sets of stairs that go up onto concrete platforms. And so Sean walked up one of these staircases, steps up onto the first platform. And I was actually down one. I was standing at the bottom of the other staircase, or the steps, concrete steps. And I was actually playing with fire ants, the red ants.
Yes.
And so I was just watching them, and then, it was the sky at the time was clear. It was blue, not many clouds. It was sunny because it's the summer holidays, or summertime. And I heard Sean say to me, "What's that? What's that? What is it?" And then when I turned around and I stood up and I turned around, and I looked up to where Sean was standing. He was pointing with his finger, his arm at the sky. And so I walked up to him and I looked to where he was pointing, and we could see in the sky what would be, a classical, metallic disc in the sky, and it was moving like that, and it was like coming closer to us, and this is like in broad daylight. And when we started to stare at it, we had this feeling of being, we lost time. So we didn't, the environment around us vanished. We were in an altered state of consciousness again, almost like the Oz factor, where the environment around you vanishes, all sound and everything.
Okay.
And it's just me, Sean, and this object in the sky and nothing else. So all the sounds around us vanished. All these loud sounds outside of the school
Yes.
grounds,
Right.
that all
Right. That's a
vanished.
common occurrence. It's a common occurrence.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure. So, and and then we'd obviously lost some sort of time, because again, when we come out of this, whatever it was, this altered state, I come out of it first. Sean was still in it, and when I looked over to him, he looked like a zombie, just standing, looking at the sky, almost like frozen in some ways. And I kept on saying to him, "Sean, Sean, Sean," until he gradually come out of this, almost like this zombie state. And the disc in the sky had gone. We don't know what happened, but I had again this feeling like I had with these Nordic beings, to run, get out of there. I wanted to get away. I needed to get away, and I didn't know what happened. And then I run, and I ran off. Sean was behind me, but at the same time, whilst we were running back to the schoolhouse, because by that time my dad was there having something to eat with my mum, and we were constantly looking, scanning the sky for this craft. We didn't
Right.
know what it was then, we just, what we see, it was like a silver disc shaped craft. And when we got to the house, we ran up the stairs, and when we got to the house, Sean pushed open the door really quickly, and we got scolded by Dad because he didn't expect that, and we scared Mum, and running in, panicking, and saying, "Dad,
Now you
Dad,"
breathe in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he told us to calm down, and Sean spoke first, and he said, what we'd seen. But again, my parents didn't dismiss it. They looked at each other. I remember they looked at each other and they didn't say nothing. Then Dad said, "It's okay, it's okay. It's fine. Just go back to playing, but stay close to the house, and it's all right." So there was never like, "Oh, it's in your head," or just see something. He was quite
So,
calm about it.
So interesting.
You know,
'Cause I
he
remember when I
wasn't,
told
you
my
know,
dad about my poltergeist, he was just like, "Ah, it's in your head." I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah. So
yeah,
they wasn't
they
like
don't
that.
believe you.
Yeah,
Right, right.
they were never dismissive, you know. And other people brought this up as well when I've told the story, you know, on podcasts. They've said, you know, don't you find that funny? Most parents would say, "Ah, you know, it's your imagination." It's in you. But they never did.
Hmm.
A short while after this, again, in the same sort of time period, you know, it was the school, you know, it's school holidays, and my you know, my dad had been in the school with the clingers had gone home there. So me and Sean decided to go. My dad had gone back home to have something to eat. So me and Sean decided to go into the school itself. So we ventured into the school. We went up the staircase and we went into, you know, I got pictures of this as well. So they got the, you know, the corridor, school corridor, and you had in the school corridor, to describe it to you, you had two toilets. You had the girls on the left and the boys on the right. And they're sort of like enclaves, you know, like you can go inside each side of it. You can fit inside on the side of the toilets. There's like a little gaps where you can go into.
Okay.
And so further along, you're on the left-hand side, you had the school library. And then you had the secretary's office. And so we played hide and seek. So I went off and hid in one of these gaps. And Sean was counting. So when I was listening to him counting, he suddenly stopped and I couldn't hear him. And he went really quiet, you know, quieter than what it was. And so I was thinking to myself at the time, you know, if I come out, maybe he's trying to trick me to find out where I am, you know,
Right.
bigger brother, you know. And then I was going to come out. I didn't. Then I still couldn't hear him. So then I did come out. And then he was standing over where the secretary's office was on the right-hand side. And just in front of us, what would be in front of us, there was two swing double doors. They were swing doors with like, you know, wired glass in the top and
Right,
the
right,
bottom.
right.
Yeah.
The X-shaped ones, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And so in further in, there was like a little space, and then there was another two sets of doors, the same, which led into the gymnasium, you know, where you do PE, you know, physical
Right.
education and that. So he was staring through these two doors. So I walked over to him, and again he said, you know, what is that? What is that? You know? And I looked through the doors and standing, and it's strange because it's like there's a piano there. But standing next to the piano was a tall white grey. And it was just standing there staring at us. This really weird, unusual sight. This, you know, and in my book, the only thing that I can come close to what it looked like was the tall alien from Close Encounters of the Third Kind that comes out from under the ship. It looked like
Never
that.
watched it. Never
No,
watched it. Is that the one?
but
Is that the
that's
one with that's the one with the guy from Coach, right?
it's the Spielberg one, you know, that came out in 1977. So,
Right.
you
I
know, but
know it's the
at the
noises,
time
right?
this
Right.
happened, you know, this film was not released. So,
Okay.
you know, but you know, but when I was writing the book, I was thinking, what can I describe it as? What does it come close to? And that's the only thing at the moment when looking at tall white greys, what is close to. I mean, the face was different, you know, because this had, you know, the black eyes, you know, but it had long arms that come right down to the ground basically, and it was just there standing at us, staring at us both. And again both of us entered an altered state of consciousness. We had the Oz factor again, and then again we had missing time. When we come out of this again, you know, we're running away from it and to go and tell our parents, you know. And I mean, it's crazy because my parents had this all the time from us, mostly from me, you know.
How did you?
And
How did? I'm sorry, Michael. How did you? How did you realize that you had missing time?
it's because of the amount of time that we were in this altered state. You know, it was
Okay.
quite. There was a lot of time that went past.
Okay, because a lot of people don't experience how long it was. Some
No,
people
it's
they
only
more,
afterwards from
more like
when we
an
went in. Yeah,
amnesic type state, and then they'll look at the clock or they'll see that the
yeah,
sun
yeah. It's
is
afterwards.
different part in the sky, and they'll go, "Wait a minute, something's off here."
It
Okay.
it was afterwards because the duration of the time when we went in to the when we were coming out. And because
Okay.
by that time, Dad had finished what he was doing, what should have been
Oh,
only
okay.
like 10 minutes. He'd just gone over to have his food. Now he's coming back into the school to work again. So he's coming up the stairs as we're trying to go down the stairs, and he meets us halfway.
Oh.
And again, we both sort of trying to tell him, look, Dad, there's somebody in the school. And Sean said it's not human. And so I remember him looking at us, with in a way, like a puzzled look. But I think he was trying to look to see if we were just joking with him, having him on
Right.
trigger.
Right.
But because he was looking at our faces and could see that we were frightened, we were genuinely scared, he then, told us to wait where we were, and he would go to investigate. And I don't think I'm not sure if he was thinking, oh, there's something in there that's not human. I think he was thinking more or less someone's broken into the school.
Okay.
So he went into the school. I mean, he grabbed hold of an object and he went into the school to look. And, he did come back and he said that the windows were okay. There was no windows open, no windows forced. The doors were locked from the inside. So there was nothing, no doors open. So he couldn't find anyone. He looked. So he come back and he just told us to go back home again, to stay close to the house, and everything would be okay. But again, there wasn't none of this, like you might be mistaken. It wasn't actually like that. It was more like, yeah, you obviously did see something, but whether that was
at this
what
time
you
when
think
when this was happening, sorry,
Yeah.
man, when this when this is happening, even I would imagine, even being as young as you were, wasn't that also already starting to creep into your mind that they should be either more afraid or more dismissive of it, or that didn't come till later?
The parents, you mean?
Yeah, like the way you felt about the way they were handling the information you were giving them.
I think it was much later on, because as I said, I mean, I do believe my mum was an alien abductee anyway, because of some of the things she told me later on. But she obviously didn't speak about it. I don't think she understood it. I don't think she spoke about it because of the community that we were in. It was close knit, and they didn't want to be, I suppose, ridiculed.
Right.
Or and being a strict Roman Catholic, the church would have looked upon it as being demons or something.
They were probably born in like the 1940s, your parents?
Earlier than that. So,
okay.
But yeah, so
yeah, then no, not going to happen.
So that happened. But with this other experience I had, this was, often when I had experiences as well, when I was, me and Sean, we slept in the same bed as children. We were in a big bed. We were in the house, but the house wasn't that big inside. Wasn't much space really. And, but I remember every time I had an experience, he would never wake up. I was like nudging him, shoving him, saying to him, like, wake up, there's somebody here, you'd never wake up. So I was always left alone with it. But on this particular experience, which I, again, I touch upon briefly, there's a lot more information in the book about it. But I remember I was laying in bed and something woke me up, something startled me in the night, I remember the door was open sort of a little bit. My parents' bedroom was actually just next door. And when I woke up, at the end of the bed, there was these three, what I now know to be three greys standing there looking at the end of the bed. And I remember two of them broke away from one of the others, and they come towards me, floating towards me. And I remember, I don't know where it come from, but I remember there was and this is the unusual thing, I remember there was a black stretcher over the bed, but it was just floating over the bed.
What's a stretcher? Do you mean like something in the hospital?
Yeah, like one you would have, say, like on if you were a medic and you're going on a, you know, pick someone up off a battleground.
Oh yeah, the stretcher. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's so it's a black one, you know, and it was floating
Right.
just above the bed. And I remember I was taken out of my bed by these two beings, and I was floated literally onto this stretcher and lowered down. I wasn't at the time able to move my body, but I was able to move my eyes. It was, you know, it was later on I realized that they can paralyze the body, but they can't control your eye movements. So I remember being on this stretcher, but again, another unusual thing is I wasn't able to shout out, you know, to call my parents. I wasn't able to do that. So I was totally paralyzed apart from my eyes. And I remember I was floated on this stretcher and out through the glass, the window of my bedroom. And so we went right through. We went right through. But, you know, I wasn't outside the body though. I was inside the body.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe
So
you.
right
I believe you, dude. I've heard this before.
I'll tell you why though afterwards. But so when we went through the window, it's like, you know, it's nighttime, and Sean's fast asleep. He didn't even wake up, you know, and that was unusual when I was having these experiences. And just like on the room below, where I had another experience later on in my book I talk about, which was a much more sinister one. But there's like the roof of it. It's almost like a balcony. You know, it acted as a balcony as well. Somewhere, you know, where you could sit and, you know, have a table or something like that. You know, it was just used that way. It was, you know, you could use it in that way as well. My parents used it and for like almost like a balcony. You know, a little quiet area where you could sit and look out at the views, you know, with a drink or something. But the stretcher was lowered first of all onto here, and I remember it started to move up, and as it moved up, I could again with my eyes only, I could see sort of, you know, from each side, and I could see a bright light in the sky above us, but I couldn't make out any shape. It was just really bright. But you know, but you know, later on, I was thinking to myself, well, surely someone else would have seen that.
Right.
So when we were moving up in this stretcher, you know, the three greys were there, but wasn't old in the stretcher. They were just close to it. And I was moving up. But as I was moving up, I could see the roof of the house and I could see the building. So on the far side of where we lived, there was a pub, you know, like a public house, and it was called the Scarborough Arms. And there were next to that there was a house with a family in it, and then there was like warehouses. But so I could see all these things whilst I was going up. But as I got closer to the light, I didn't have no more memories. The next thing I know is it was the morning and I'm in bed. So you know, and that's that. You know, but I do remember everything leading up to it, but I don't remember anything. You know what happened,
Right.
and I
Right.
remember.
I've heard these before where people will actually like partially go through the wall and then it
Yeah.
excuse me. And then they'll be like levitated with their head in the wall and they'll see like the plaster and the bricks and they'll even taste it as they're being, and then they'll also forget, or they'll even go inside the ship and it'll look like a certain size and it doesn't look that big. And then once they're inside of it, it'll look like two football pitches or two football fields.
Sure.
It's so large on the inside. It's such interesting experiences a lot of people seem to share.
I mean, you know, later on, this ain't in the book, but later on, when I was in a different location in a different house where I had really a lot of experiences in that house as well. I had a friend come over and he stayed in my room, and he woke up and he woke up and he come running down the stairs to me and he said something just grabbed me, a hand come out of the wall where your bed is, because I used to have my bed close to the wall, you know, a lot of abductees do. And he said it come out of the wall and grabbed me and he's trying to push me into the wall, push me through. And he said they obviously think it's you in the bed and not me, you know.
I've been grabbed one time. I've been grabbed
Yeah,
one time myself next to the wall, just like that, but on my chest.
so when he was being grabbed, he pushed it off and he used his fist and punched it. Whatever was
Wow.
there, he hit it. So when he felt contact with something, he told me. And you know, he come running down to me, and he was just telling me, and he said, you know, something's tried to grab me from the wall and bring me into the wall, you know, which was obviously not solid then, you know, it's more on the lines of like a gate or a stargate, or you know,
Right.
a portal, I would say,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, because you know, nothing really is solid, is it? You know, it's
Newtonian physics aren't solid.
yeah, but you know, but it's so you know, he told me he didn't sleep very well that night.
Yeah. Did
So
he come back?
he went back, yeah, but he didn't
No, no. Did he
sleep.
ever come back and hang out at your house again?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got lots of experiences with him, and again with the you know, the military side of things. So
Okay. Okay.
um
All right.
um um you know, but obviously we didn't know that at the time.
Right. Right.
Much later on.
So is there anything else you want to tell me, like as an introduction to this? Is like just kind of like the beginning of like just kind of gives everything. I guess you would say like a groundwork, like a foundation of things that have been happening to your entire life. Is there anything else that you want to like maybe put in here before I get you up out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I just say briefly, I've had experiences with the infamous Men in Black. That I was 4 years old when I had my first encounter with them. They come to threaten me because I believe of what we had seen, me and Sean. But I had this experience myself. You know, that's in my book. I mean, just touch upon these two things here. They're not in the book, but I can just mention them if that's okay.
However you like. However you like.
I mean, one of them, one day when I was in the other house, I remember being upstairs in the bathroom, you know, and I was having a wash. So I'd put the you know, the plug into the plug hole, you
Mhm.
know, and I was washing my face. But when I was doing this, something fell out of my mouth, and it fell into the water, you know, into the water. And when I took it out, it was just a tiny, very tiny, like very tiny, like that, probably smaller than that, metal square, perfect metal square. And I thought, you know, you know, this wasn't in my mouth in the night time. Where did it come from? And so you know, I dried it a little bit, and I looked under it with a magnifying glass, and it had tiny wires in it, little wires. And then
Okay.
so anyway, I contacted a local ufologist. You know, his name was, you know, I won't say his name, but I contacted him. He didn't live far away. He was an investigator, you know, into UFOs and this type of thing. And he invited me over to his house. So we went into his house, and his office was upstairs. And I was telling him a little bit about my story, you know, what my experiences were so far. And I showed him this little object, and he had a more powerful magnifying glass, you know. And so he looked underneath it, and again he confirmed, yes, you're right. It's got little wires in it.
Wow.
So he asked me, he said, listen, he said, I have a friend in the MOD. He says, is it okay if he looks at it? You know,
What's an MOD?
the Ministry of Defense.
Oh, okay.
And I said, you know, I shouldn't have done really. I was a bit naive then, you know, I didn't really understand what was happening. And so I gave it to him to allow this other person to see. So anyway, like weeks went past and I didn't hear from him. And eventually I did. And he said to me, I'm so sorry. He said, but the object has disappeared along with the person I gave it to. He's been moved.
Wow.
And
That's how
so, you know,
convenient.
yeah. And so, you know, unfortunately, I didn't get the object back. And
Right.
I mean, this other one here, this was when I lived in Glastonbury in the southwest of England, where I am now. So, and I remember a friend of mine, he had a friend who gave him a military grade telescopic scope from a sniper's rifle.
Okay.
So, okay, you know, he wasn't supposed to have it, but
Right.
and
Right.
he
Right.
had, and so he had it, yeah, and it could see like, you know, in different you know, different settings, different frequencies, so to speak, or, you know, different types of radiation levels. So I remember he took me up onto one of the hills, you know, up in Glastonbury, quite high up on this particular land. And he said to me, look at the sky through this. And I said, okay. So I looked through it in the sky, and I could see two TR-3B triangular black craft flying around above the clouds. And I took it away from my eyes and looked up, and you couldn't see anything. I looked for it again, and there was one black triangular craft, a TR-3B, and it was firing at the other one. So there was a laser coming out of it, shooting at the other one as they were flying around, maneuvering around the upper atmosphere of the sky. And so, you know, that was quite interesting. So, you know, I could only see it through this particular scope.
That's interesting.
So, you know, much later on, I did have a lot of sightings of these particular craft later on, again in a different location. You know,
have you ever heard when they first developed night vision, it was a different color. I think it was now it's yellow and green, or yellow green, one of the two. In the past, used to be red back during the Vietnam War, and they were seeing like literal demons. People were freaking out. Like, yes, they actually said the military, we scrapped. Literally, like big commanders and stuff were freaking out, running out of the jungle, giving away their position, and all kind of crazy shit.
Wow!
They were seeing these things, and they just said, no, we're going to have to discontinue that color, and they changed it. And then, because I've actually worn night vision goggles, I think it was green. It's been a long time. That was 25 years ago, but that just kind of
figured that
leads credence to what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So it obviously can see through, you know,
certain frequencies.
You know, certain frequencies or different types of radiation. That, you know, that the human eyes can't see normally. So that's quite interesting, you know, technology, isn't it, really?
Yes.
You know, and that's like at the lower level of the, you know, technological scale now. So it's interesting to see what they got now.
And I and the rest of the world will never know. Wow. They'll never know. They could probably see things or know things, or, you know, I was just thinking about, like, you know, the technology they can do with like holograms and things like that, you know, blue beam. Who knows what they can do now? We haven't the slightest idea.
Well, that'll come later on, I think, with our interview.
It all comes out. It all comes out. It all comes out. Just like Rommel said. He said, in the end, the truth will always come out. It will always will.
Eventually it'll come out. I mean, it's coming out in little bits and pieces now, you know.
Yes.
And, you know, obviously they don't like that.
No, they don't. There's, like, you've been tap dancing. You've been doing this for a moment. This is not your first interview, I can tell. So you do know there's certain things you can say and can't say. And that means hey, there's things that you'll never tell me, which is fine, because I'd rather be safe, personally. But it still needs to come out nonetheless. If anything, there might be some teenage boy or girl right now who's experiencing the same things that you've experienced and continue to experience, who may find some type of solace in listening to this. And for that, I commend you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. So that's the beginning. One more time. What's the name of your book so people can find it?
Yeah, it's HIGH STRANGENESS, A Lifetime of Alien and Paranormal Encounters, published by Flying Disc Press. It's on Amazon at the moment. It's on Amazon. It's on soft cover, hard cover. It's audio, and it's on Kindle.
Okay, the links will be down in the description. You know, go ahead and give them to me, and I'll make sure that they get down there. Thanks so much for coming on. I know this is, well, what is it over there now? Well, 1 a.m. where you are. I worked all day. You're going to be doing some research. I know that you enjoy your nightly research, as you've told me. And I've got
some other podcasts coming up, which are going to be.
Oh, no kidding.
One of them's going to be in Canada, 3 o'clock in the morning for me.
Oh, well, you're going to get yourself a nap or drink some coffee? What's the plans here, man?
No, I got quite I got high energy levels. I don't need much sleep. Yeah,
I do.
it's quite, but
yeah, no, you gotta cancel Christmas if I don't get my sleep. I realize that over the older I get. So
it happens.
this is definitely the beginning of hopefully a few of these at the very least. And thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do me a favor, stick around for a second so I can check the recordings.
Sure, sure.
All right, thank you. Well, so guys, that was Michael Kameron. There's a lot in there. There's a lot that he is kind of foreshadowing, which I've picked up on a couple things, and a couple things I'll let slide because it's his story to tell, and all I'm here is just to convey it. To convey a little bit more information. If you guys keep finding yourself coming back to the iJupiter podcast, please do me a favor, like and subscribe, comment, send it to your friends, tell your grandma, hey grandma, you like interesting stories about things that you won't find on radio or TV? Oh, sure. Well, then go ahead and send her my podcast. You can also find me on Rumble, like I always said. You can also find me on Spotify, and I'll probably be doing some couple of Apple podcasts and iHeartRadio. I just haven't gotten around to it. I'm a very busy guy, as you know that. Probably know by now. And let's see here. Remember, you are watching the iJupiter podcast, and also remember, we are the eye, and we are aware. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.